If you've spent any time working with AI coding agents, you've probably been swimming in a sea of terms. Things like rules, commands, subagents, and now skills. It can feel really, really complicated. But there's actually a surprisingly logical story behind how we got here. So let's untangle this whole thing and find the one simple idea that ties it all together.
All right, so here's the plan. We're going to start with the mess of concepts we have today, then we'll jump back in time to see how each new idea was actually a solution to a real problem. We'll look at the need for action, how we got better at controlling these agents, and finally, how this new idea of skills kind of synthesizes everything into one simple takeaway. I promise, by the end, you'll see the logic behind all the madness.
So yeah, let's just tackle the big problem head on. Why on earth are there so many different ways to talk to and control an AI agent? It really feels like every new tool comes with its own dictionary you have to learn. I mean, look at this list. It's a total alphabet soup of tech terms, and it can be pretty intimidating. But here's the secret. These aren't just random words somebody made up. Each one represents a very specific solution to a problem that developers were facing. And if we just trace that history, it's all going to start to make perfect sense.
Okay, so our story starts with the most basic challenge of all. How do you stop a super creative but sometimes kind of forgetful AI from just making stuff up? Well, the first answer was really simple and direct.
The solution was rules. Now, you can think of a rules file as a little cheat sheet that you hand the AI before every single chat. It's got all the non-negotiables, right? Your company's coding style, specific business logic, things you notice the model keeps getting wrong. It gave the AI this permanent, static foundation of knowledge. And here you see the big trade-off. On one hand, hey, rules worked. They absolutely made the agent more reliable. But on the other hand, as that cheat sheet got longer and longer, it started to eat up precious real estate in the AI's short-term memory, what we call its context window. And it did this for every single task, whether those rules were actually relevant or not. And that exact limitation, that bloated context, led directly to the next phase in this evolution. Developers realized, you know what? I don't always need a permanent cheat sheet. Sometimes I just need the agent to do a specific, multi-step thing for me right now. And enter commands. A command is basically just a saved, reusable workflow, a little recipe. So instead of being loaded every single time like a rule, you could just call it up whenever you needed it. It was the perfect fix for those repetitive tasks that you only wanted to trigger sometimes. And this is a perfect example. I mean, think about it. Instead of manually typing out 3 different Git instructions every time you want to make a pull request, you could just bundle them up into a single command, like /PR. This was a huge leap in efficiency. We were moving beyond just static info to on-demand action.
But what if the agent needed to do more than just run a few shell commands? What if it needed to, talk to other apps? That's where MCP servers, or Master Control Program Servers, came into the picture. And this was a massive leap forward. It let the agent run its own server and connect to external tools. Think about creating a ticket in Linear or firing off a message in Slack, all from your agent.
So MCP servers basically gave the agent superpowers. But do you notice a familiar problem popping up again? By telling the agent about all these new tools it could use, we were once again running the risk of bloating that context window. We're filling its short-term memory with descriptions of tools it might not even need. That core problem of managing context just refused to go away. Okay, so let's recap. At this point, our agents have static knowledge from rules and on-demand actions from commands. The next wave of innovation was all about refinement. It was about asking, how can we make the agent's behavior more predictable, more focused, and just more reliable? And this question led to ideas like modes and subagents. The basic idea here was to put the agent into a specific mindset for a certain task. It's kind of like putting blinders on a horse. So for example, you could activate a planning mode, and that would limit the agent to only using planning tools, and it would tweak its core instructions to focus only on that goal. And as you can imagine, that made its output way more reliable. Now for hooks, the most important word on this slide is deterministic. You see, most of our chats with an AI have some level of unpredictability, right? But hooks are 100% guaranteed to run every single time. So whether it's injecting a piece of crucial info right before a task starts or logging the final result to a database right after, hooks give you this layer of absolute certainty in a pretty uncertain world. Which brings us to today.
and to the concept that really ties all of this history together. The community realized we needed an open standard that took all the best ideas, the on-demand feel of commands, the power of MCP servers, and finally solved that pesky context problem for good. And that standard is skills.
So what exactly is a skill? Well, it's this incredibly flexible idea. In its most basic form, it's just like a command, a reusable workflow you can call on demand. But in its advanced form, it can be a whole shareable package that has scripts, executables, and any other assets it needs to pull off a really complex task.
And right here, this is the breakthrough. This is the key. Unlike rules, which are always loaded, skills finally solve the context bloat problem because they are loaded dynamically. The agent knows the skill is available, but the nitty-gritty details are only pulled into its memory at the exact moment it needs them. That is the secret to efficient agent control.
So, wow, we have journeyed through a ton of terminology, right? But the beauty of this whole story, this whole evolution, is that it all simplifies down to a really clear and honestly elegant framework. All of these concepts, they're really just different ways of managing two types of things.
And there they are, static context and dynamic context. That's it. Static context is the information that's always present, that foundational stuff, like a rule. And dynamic context is, well, it's everything else. The tools, the workflows, the actions that are only brought into the conversation when they're actually needed. That's the whole story right there. And this table just makes it crystal clear, right? Rules and those deterministic hooks, they fall into the static bucket. They provide that always-on foundation. Then you have commands, MCP servers, and their modern evolution. Skills, they all fall into the dynamic bucket, giving the agent powerful new abilities without that upfront cost to the context window. So what does this all mean for you today? Well, for rules, the best practice is to think less is more. Keep them minimal, keep them high quality, and think of them as a living document that you update whenever you spot the agent making a mistake. And for skills, my advice is to start exploring them now. This is where the whole ecosystem is going, and learning how to package your workflows this way is really the future of interacting with agents efficiently. And that leaves us with a really fascinating final question to chew on. Today, we spend all this time carefully defining the skills we give to our agents. But as these AIs get smarter and more autonomous, is a day coming when they'll be able to analyze a problem and create their own brand new skills completely on the fly? Definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me.